Welcome to another episode of the USATF Fantasy Show. My name is James Hill, and I'm joined today by Jordan Testerman and Dr. Robert Chapman. And today we're going to be going over our picks and analysis for the New York City Grand Prix taking place on June 9th. Before we jump into this week's picks and analysis, I would like to point out that I'm no longer wearing the big hat. So, everybody around here is like kind of applauding and smiling. And also, crickets. For the rest of the episode, you can refer to me as King James. As Jordan is wearing the big hat now, I feel really good to get that off of my head. It was really uncomfortable, and this crown's a little bit more comfortable. Jordan looks like he wants to punch me in the face, but you know what? That's just kind of the way she goes. Next time win, and you won't have to wear the big hat.
All right, I got a couple things to say about that. First of all, you didn't win. Dr. Chapman won, so congratulations, Dr. Chapman.
Dr. Chapman did tie, yeah.
Second of all, and I'm not one to make excuses, okay, so I'm going to hold this L. All right, I did lose. Not going to take that away from you, buddy, okay? But I'm going to use an analogy for you that you might appreciate because you're a betting man from time to time, right? So, you go into a casino, right? And you want to play blackjack. You sit down at a blackjack table. Why does the casino offer that game? Because they have an advantage, right?
Yeah.
What's your advantage in this podcast? Oh, that's right. You always make me go first. Oh, damn. Didn't think about that, did you?
Fair.
All right. Well, today, I'm going to challenge you to answer first.
Okay. I can do that.
All right.
It's a lot of excuses for something.
It's not an excuse. It's just an observation.
Okay.
It's just an observation.
That's fair.
I think it's not fair that I have to go first and share my opinion on some of these picks. So
that's fair.
Today we're gonna do it a little differently.
I will go first for the majority of these questions. I won't go first for all of them because then I just kind of we need to switch it up a little bit. But that sounds good. That hat looks good on you. I'd like to keep it that way. So before we get into the questions, Jordan, we got a stacked meet this week. What event are you looking forward to the most?
There are a lot of great options to choose from here. I'm going to show some love to the field because Dr. Chapman always gets on us about not showing love to the field. But I'm really looking forward to the women's long jump and just seeing how Tara Davis-Woodhall is going to perform. She's been looking fantastic this year. She's been over 7 meters in her last 4 meets. So, and then the rest of the field, it's a lot of the rest of our top women's long jumpers as well. Then, this could be a preview of the team that we send to Paris. So I'm really looking forward to that one, as well as the women's 100 hurdles and the men's 200. I'm looking forward to seeing what Noah Lyles is going to do.
Yeah. Dr. Chapman, what about you?
For me, it's a little different. Instead of events in particular, I'm focused more on people. And I think it's because we're getting into this point where we're 2 weeks out from the Olympic trials when this meet happens. And so there are certain people in my mind who can be key players for us at the Olympic Games in Paris. To be able to do that, you got to make the team first. And they've either been looking solid but not great as far as the season has gone along, or you got some people coming back from injury. So I'm interested in the high hurdles, seeing what Daniel Roberts and Trey Cunningham can do. I know that Grant's running really solid, but if we're going to get multiple medals in that event, it's going to be because Trey or Daniel or Cordell Tinch or somebody else steps up. And so are they starting to show that they're getting hot a little bit? I'm interested in Gabby Thomas. Gabby, I think we thought might have looked a little flat, a little overcooked in LA, which is what you have to do during the main part of the year. You got to train hard. And I'm just curious to see if she's kind of absorbed that training and over the hump a little bit and ready to go. And then on Saturday night, we've got 2 field events. We've got the hammer and the discus. And the men's hammer is a real positive, maybe medal pickup for us. And Daniel Haw has been looking pretty solid, and Rudy Winkler's been the guy the last couple of years. So can those two guys who are, top 8 in the world make that step up, show that not only they're going to make the team, but can throw 80 meters, at the games in Paris, and that's what it'll take to get a medal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a ton of good events to watch at this meet. Me personally, I mean, the women's 100 hurdles is absolutely stacked. I mean, just looking through my notes, you've got Tania Marshall, Laisha Johnson, Toby Amison, Kenny Harrison, Devin Charlton. I mean, those are very, very talented hurdlers, and I think that's going to be a really good race to watch. And then echoing Jordan, I mean, there's the men's 200, seeing Noah open up in the 2 is going to be pretty interesting. We've seen over the years that New York Icon Stadium can produce some pretty fast times this time of year. So really excited to see what happens this weekend. With that, let's jump into our picks and analysis for this week. So question number 1, what will the winning time be in the women's 100 meters at the 2024 USATF New York City Grand Prix? Your answer choices are 1090 or faster, 1091 to 1095, 1096 to 11 seconds, 1101 to 1105, 1106 to 1110, or 1111 or slower. To Jordan's point, I will start off first this time. Those banned questions are pretty difficult to pinpoint, especially when you think about, I mean, you're really picking between 500ths of a second. When you think about 500ths of a second, and that's just influencing your answer choice here, it's pretty amazing that that's what we're able to do here. I'm going to go ahead and go with 1091 to 1095. We've seen some fast times. You saw LA a couple weeks ago. Sha'Carri ran 1083. You've seen Julian Alfred open up with a fast time. Neither one of those are in this race. Elaine Thompson-Herah opened at LA with an 11.3. I do think that maybe that was just a blip on the radar for her, but I do think 11.3 to 1090, 0.4 of a second, that's a lot of ground to make up in 2 weeks. And that kind of just shows you where that field is at. So I think it's not that 1090. I don't think we see anything quite that fast, but we still see a fast time in New York this time of year. So I'm going to go 1091 to 1095. Jordan, I'll let you go second.
Yeah, this is probably one of the toughest questions on the card for this one, especially with, like you said, such narrow ranges to choose from. I think I'm going to go with 1096 to 11 flat here. Aaliyah Hobbs historically runs pretty fast at this meet. I mean, over the last 2 years, she ran 1098 and 1084, but she hasn't competed in over a month. So I'll be interested to see how she looks. And then to your point, Elaine Thompson opened up at Prix, and she looked just a little bit rusty. So I don't think we're going to see anything blazing fast, but I think sub 11 is fair.
Dr. Chapman?
I think you could throw a dart at a dartboard and probably have about the best chance of winning this one than trying to do an educated pick. Jordan, you said this is probably the hardest one. I think it is absolutely the hardest one. We do have another one of these range picks at the end of the list in the men's 200, but I think this one's probably a little harder. I think the only thing you can do is just take a stab, take a guess, or if you think that the times are going to follow a normal distribution, and just kind of go for something in the middle. So, Jordan, I think your guess, 1096 to 11 flats, is as good as any. I'll go with that.
Question number 2. Who will win the women's 100-meter hurdles at the 2024 USATF New York City Grand Prix? Answer choices are Toby Amison, Tania Marshall, Danielle Williams, Devin Charlton, Kenny Harrison, or any other athlete. With this, I mean, like we talked about earlier, I mean, this is a stacked field. I mean, I feel like any one of these women can medal at the Olympic Games, or all of them could medal at like 3 of those could be your medalist. I'm going to have to go with Toby Amison, your world record holder. She's looked solid, just throughout, all of the races that she's run. And I don't know that I can go against her at this point. I do think that, again, though, this is a very competitive field, and I wouldn't be shocked if any of these athletes win the 100-meter hurdles.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Tania Marshall here. She's been probably the most consistent so far this year out of everyone on the start list, but man, this is such a stacked race that I think anyone in there could win. But I think my reasoning for Tania would, she almost won at Prix. She was, a couple hundredths off the win there. She got third. She won in LA. She's been running consistently low 12.5s or in the 12.4s. I think just, based on consistency here, I think Tania is probably the best bet.
I think Tania is maybe the best bet, but I'm still going to go with Kenny Harrison. So Kenny tweaked her hamstring earlier in the spring, did some hard work in rehab and got herself back. So she's just a little delayed from everybody else. She ran this past weekend in Atlanta at the Edwin Moses meet and looks solid. And they're staying out in Atlanta, doing a training camp, going right into New York. And I think there's a little bit of Bobby Kersey here at play. He knows how to get people ready at the right time. And I just have a feeling Kenny's going to just show she's hitting it this weekend.
Yeah, 3 different picks on that question. You got to love it. You got to love it. At least I can separate myself from the field after that question. Question number 3. Will the winning time in the men's 110-meter hurdles at the 2024 USATF New York City Grand Prix be faster than or equal to 13.1 seconds? Answer choices are yes or no. I'm going to go with no. There's no Grant in this field. You have Trey Cunningham in there. He ran 13:29 at Prix. You've got Cordell Tench, who ran a little bit slower than that as well. I do think that 13.1 is just a little bit too fast. The closest that we had was Daniel Roberts. I believe he ran, 13:13, 13:12 maybe. So, again, we are progressing. That was, a couple weeks ago. You've got more and more time as they get closer to the Olympic trials. You're getting more and more into form. I just think 13.1 is just a touch too fast. I think we're close. I think we're in the 13.1 range. But I don't quite think we get to 13.1 flat for this race.
I'm going to go against you here, and I'm going to say yes. Even though nobody in the field has done it yet this year, this is going to be a recurring theme throughout this episode. This track is fast.
It is.
And over the last 2 years, we've seen winning times of 13:01 and 12:84 by Devin Allen.
That was
and the
insane.
13:01 last year was by D-Rob. So, and D-Rob is coming back for this race. He's run low 13:1 like 3 times this year already. And I think just given the reputation of this meet and this track, I think he's going to run somewhere in the 13:0s.
Yeah, I agree with you. My experience bias is watching those 2 fast hurdle races the last 2 years. And so I'm just kind of primed by that and thinking that I don't see it being slower than 13:1 unless they've got some sort of big headwind. I think I'm a big Daniel Roberts fan. I think either he or Trey are going to be on it. And then Cordell Tench, you just never know. He's shown when he gets hot, he gets hot. So I just think one of those 3 guys pops and runs sub 13:10.
Question number 4. How many men will run faster than or equal to 45 seconds in the men's 400 meters at the 2024 USATF New York City Grand Prix? Answer choices are 3 or more or 2 or fewer. I personally found this question to be pretty difficult. I'm going to go with 3 or more. You look back past weekend to Oslo. We had 3 or more run it in that race. You had Karani James, who's in this field. You had Matthew Hudson-Smith. You have Vernon Norwood, all run faster than 45 seconds. Again, that's in Oslo. It's different. It's different atmosphere, different, track to run on. But I do think the field in this meet is competitive. I think it's at least equal to that field that was run out in Oslo. You've got Dream Richards, you've got Wade Van Niekerk, you've got Matthew Bowling, you got Karani James again. I think between those people, you got Chris Bailey, Elijah Godwin. I think we find 3 or more people out of that field that are able to get that done. I think it's that time of year where if you want to make the Olympic team, you want to go to Paris, this is the time of year that you need to start running fast. And I think 45 seconds is well within range of some of these athletes.
Yeah, I think there's just a couple too many question marks surrounding this event for this meet specifically for me to pick the over. So I'm going to go with 2 or fewer. The question marks surrounding Dream Richards and Wade Van Niekerk, I mean, they haven't run any open fours this year yet, so it's kind of hard to tell what they're going to come out and look like. I'm expecting Karani James to look like Karani James. He's going to run somewhere in the mid 44s. I think that's a pretty solid bet there. Chris Bailey just ran 44.4 over the weekend, looked really good at World Relays as well. So I think, those might be the 2 that dip under. And then Matthew Bowling is also pretty close. He's on the cusp of that sub 45. Like, he ran 44.98, I believe, a couple weeks ago. So, I mean, he could have a breakout performance and dip under it again. But yeah, I think just without knowing where Van Niekerk and Richards are and the rest of the field just been running 45s, 46s, I think I'm going to go with the under here.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jordan. I'm going to go with under 2. The one thing we just don't know about is how the wind's going to play into this. The backstretch at Randall's Island is kind of open and exposed, and I think a lot of times if there's a wind, it tends to come from the south, so you get it in the face when you're on that backstretch, and then I don't think you really get the full benefit of the push of it coming home. You got those guys coming back from Europe. You got the guy who make them a little tired. You got the guys who are just opening up that are question marks. I think 2 or less is the right move here.
Question number 5. Will the farthest throw in the women's shot put at the 2024 USATF New York City Grand Prix be farther than or equal to 20 meters, which is 65 feet, 7 1/4 inches? Yes or no? For this one, I think the question mark for me is, does Chase Ely compete? I know she's been kind of rumored to be on the start list, but if I'm not mistaken, she's in Stockholm for the Stockholm meet, and just traveling back to New York. I mean, I do think she is capable of throwing over 20 meters. I think there are multiple people in this field that are capable of that. However, I'm going to go with no, just due to that question mark. That's just something where, I'm on the fence on this question, but I just don't know that anyone in this field can get to 20 meters.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on this one. Regardless of whether Chase Ely decides to compete here or not, she did win Stockholm right at 20 meters even. But Sarah Mitten's also in this field from Canada. She's looked great this year. She's thrown over 20 meters 3 times, but 2 of those were indoors, and 4 of her 5 outdoor meets have been under 20 meters. And the rest of this field has been, just a little bit behind so far this season. They've been throwing in the 18 to low 19 meter range. So with all that said, I think the pick here is no.
Yeah, I think you guys are wrong. I think whether Chase is in it or not, I think Sarah Mitten can throw 20 meters. She's shown it before. She can do it again. I think Maggie Ewan could have a little breakout here. I know she's been struggling a little bit, but I think if she backs off a little bit and tapers, she could get there. I just think somebody's going to pop at 20. I think I'm going to go against you guys and say yes.
Fair enough. Question 6. Who will win the men's 100 meters at the 2024 USATF New York City Grand Prix? Answer choices are Kendall Williams, PJ Austin, Fred Curley, Benjamin Azamati, or any other athlete. Give me my man Fred Curley. He said it and he doubled down on it on our podcast. He has said 9.57 next time he touches the track. World record. He's ready. He's doubled down on it. Do I think that he's going to run a world record at this meet? I'm not saying that. I'm not giving that stamp right now. I would love it if he did. But for the confidence that he's portrayed, going into this outdoor season, and just the look around him and him on social media, he is extremely excited for this. I think he's kind of on a little bit of a redemption tour after his 2023 outdoor showing. I think he's ready. I don't think anyone else in this field really is going to challenge him at this point. And I think he gets it done in a pretty fast time, if I'm being honest.
So I did also pick Fred. I think he is going to be challenged in this race. Kendall Williams ran 993 a few weeks back. He's been looking really solid in practice. Tyler was showing me some videos of him, and some of his numbers that he's been putting up down in Florida have been pretty impressive. Also, can't sleep on PJ Austin. I mean, he always comes and shows up and competes really well. So based on recent form, I think it's tough between Fred and Kendall for me, but I think I'm going to go with Fred. I don't think JB and Quincy Watts would, have him come to this meet if he wasn't ready. So even though he hasn't competed in a few weeks, with everything that he said on our podcast as well, not expecting a world record, but I think he's going to be ready to win.
So here's the analogy I'm going to give you is I'm going to give you a horse racing analogy. So when you handicap horse racing, a lot of times there's two ways to view it. You can look at what's called recent form, who's been running well lately, who's had good workouts lately that are published in past performance data. But then there's also what's called back class. And that is who is, running stakes races, or who's running allowance races, or who's running claiming races. They have grades of races high and low. And Fred is simply the class of the field. He maybe doesn't have recent form that shows that maybe some of the other guys do, but this is where I think that class is going to beat recent form. And Fred, I think, is just too talented of an athlete that even if he's not quite where he wants to be, I agreed he's not going to run the world record. I don't think any of us expect that, but he's got so much talent and so much class. If he's just even partially on the way to being fit, I think he's just too strong for the rest of the field.
I agree. I mean, he's been very good at silencing doubters throughout his career. I mean, stopping from 400 down to the 1 and the 2. Everybody's like, "You're crazy. Don't do that." And then he wins the silver medal in Tokyo. He's your world champion in 22. Obviously had a rough year for him last year, but I think he comes out and gets it done.
But, speaking to Robert's point about, the class of the field, we were talking about in LA, I believe, Tobogo, he was the class of the field as well. But, we saw Kyrie King come out and beat him head to head. And, I just think that it's going to be closer than people think it's going to be.
Yeah. Question number 7. Will the farthest jump in the women's long jump at the 2024 USATF New York City Grand Prix be farther than or equal to 7 meters, which is 22 feet, 11 and a half inches? Yes or no? I'm going to go with yes. I think Tara gets it done. I'm very interested to see her perform. She always puts on a show, gets the crowd into it, just brings that energy. I think that for me, I don't think there's a way that she jumps under 7 meters based off of just what I've seen from her, even throughout the outdoor season already.
Yeah, I think the only way that she doesn't is, the wind is acting up that day. The wind tends to be a tailwind at Icon, but I think all these women on their best day are capable of 7 meters. So I think, this line might be a little bit skewed in that sense, but field events are also a lot more variable than running events. So, on any given day, there's other conditions besides the wind to factor in there. But, yeah, Tara's just looked too good this year, so I'm going to go with yes.
Yeah, and I think you guys make good points, but I'm going to say no, and here's why. James mentioned that Tara likes to feed off the crowd, put on a show, things like that. You got to remember at Icon now, they've moved the long jump and triple jump runway to outside the oval on the back stretch. There's no fans over there. You are a mile away from the crowd on the home stretch. And Tara seems like she's the type of person who thrives off attention, thrives off of energy from the crowd. I'm just worried it's going to be a little flat of an environment out there for that field, being all the way over on the other side of the track. And in times that we've had that sort of environment before, I think the jumps come off maybe a little under. You're absolutely right, Jordan. The wind's going to be a big player in this. But I think just the setup of the venue kind of makes it where I'm going to say no.
Okay. And that's a great point, honestly, because she really does thrive off of the energy of the crowd. As someone that has jumped with her, or, not against her, obviously, but, I've been on the track with her. We both went to high school in Southern California, so we were at a lot of the same meets. And, yeah, she will make it known that she is about to jump. She feeds off the crowd's energy like none other. But, I still think she can get it done without that. But that is a great point that I didn't think about.
Yeah, another thing to consider is cues in this field as well. I mean, and I think some people are familiar with Tara and Quenisha Burke's kind of feud that they had throughout last year. I don't think she wants to leave any doubt that, she is going to be the best long jumper in the women's field. I think she wants to try and put some separation there. So that's some additional motivation for her, I think.
Hey, I think it's important that we kind of put a disclaimer out there a little bit in that we're giving our picks of what we think these athletes will do. And I don't think any of us, I don't want any athlete to think we're rooting against him or her. And I don't want any athlete to think that, I want Tara Davis and I want Q to jump 7 meters. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see everybody do well. This is kind of for fun and for fantasy purposes here. And I think it's just important to say that, especially for us being with USATF, we want to see everybody do well. But at the same time, it's kind of, fun to kind of prognosticate here a little bit.
Definitely. Question number 8. Will the winning time in the women's 400 meters at the 2024 USATF New York City Grand Prix be faster than or equal to 49.5 seconds? I'm going to go with yes. We saw Sydney run 52.7, and that was while she was jumping over things. I can't imagine that she can't run 3 seconds slower than that, or 3 seconds faster than that, without having hurdles in her way. We saw what she did in LA in the 200. Absolutely. She's shown her fitness, obviously, this year. I think that she's able to run 49.5. I think there's other people that are capable of doing it as well, but Sydney for sure, I think, can run 49.5 or faster at this meet.
Yeah, Sydney's the class of this field, and she's in great shape. You can tell just by how she's been competing so far this year. She debuted, or this is her debut at the Open 4 this year, but last year she won this in 49.51. Paulino just set the outdoor world lead at 49.3. I think Sydney is probably looking at that and thinking to herself, yeah, she can run faster than that. Even at LA when she ran the 200, she's crossed the line 22.08, I believe, and she's like, I was expecting 21. So if she's saying that about her 200, I think she can definitely drop a low 49. So I'm going to go with yes.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to how hard does Sid train this week. She ran that hurdles. How does she come out of it? How does she feel? How hard does she train this week? Kind of pushing through this meet. At the same time, I think she wants to get a mark. She's already qualified for USA's. Even if she wouldn't have run a 400 hurdle, she was already qualified for the Olympic trials because she's got a medal, a defending medalist. If she wants to run the 400 as kind of a backup or have that, she's got to put up a mark. So I know she wants to come out here and do well. I think you got to think James's argument of she ran 52.7, not jumping over everything. Can she run 49.5 flat? Without jumping over things, you got to think the answer is yes. As long as she doesn't train too hard this week and kind of be a little flat from that, yeah, she's going to do it.
Question number 9. Who will win the women's 200 meters at the 2024 USATF New York City Grand Prix? Answer choices are Gabby Thomas, Tamara Clark, Jenna Prandini, or Tamari Davis, or any other athlete. I'm going to go with Gabby. Gabby Thomas, to me, is the most suited to win this field. She had a kind of a blip on her radar, is what I'm going to call it, at the LA Grand Prix. That was the same race that we saw Sydney storm out to her very fast time. I think part of that, you got to remember these athletes are training, for they're training for the Olympic trials, which is in a couple weeks, and then also hopefully for the Olympics. And I think that right now, with it being 2 weeks out from Olympic trials, I think Gabby Thomas is in that form that she needs to be in, and I think she ultimately is the one that gets it done this weekend in New York.
I'm just skeptical of Gabby after LA. And, like you said, she was in a hard training cycle. I get that. She's entered again in the 100 and 200 here. So in my mind, does that mean that, she's still training? Like, is she still using this meet, for training? Like, obviously, she's going to show up at Olympic trials and be ready, no doubt. But I think I'm going to go with a different answer here. I'm going to go with Tamara Clark. And she's not someone that's, super talked about compared to some of the other athletes, but the 200, in my opinion, is definitely her best event. And, aside from Gabby, I don't think you can say that about anyone else in this field. Tamari Davis just got beat this past weekend over 200, so I don't really feel comfortable picking her. And then Prandini's still rounding into form. Everyone else has, been running in the high 22s, so I'm going to go with Clark here.
Yeah, I think you could flip a coin between those two. I think Gabby is approaching this still as I've got to run 3 rounds in 3 days in the 200 meters at the Olympic trials, and there's a strength that goes with that she's trying to prep for. That's why I think she's doing that double. I got to lean towards Gabby. Tamara's running solid. I think she could absolutely be there, but I just think if I got to make a pick here, I'm going to go with Gabby.
Before we get into the last question, I do want to say, if you like what we're wearing today, Team USATF merchandise, go to usatf.org/store, pick up your favorite Team USATF apparel, and help support your athletes on their journey to gold on their way to Paris. Best way to support your athletes, get some Team USATF merch. Question number 10. What will the winning time be in the men's 200 meters at the 2024 USATF New York City Grand Prix? It's another one of those range questions. Answer choices are 1965 or faster, 1966 to 1980, 1981 to 1995, 1996 to 20.1, 20.11 or slower. I'm going to go out, and this is the optimist in me talking. We've seen this after, podcast and podcasts, fantasy show after fantasy show. I want to see them run fast times. And I really think, we've said it a couple times on this show already. New York produces some fast times. Icon Stadium is historically a fast track. Usain Bolt originally broke the world record at Icon Stadium. You've seen just very, very fast times on that track. I don't think this is any different. I'm going to go with 1965 or faster. I want to, again, back to the talk on social media, but Noah Lyles came out and said, good job, Kenny, for running the world lead, but you can keep that world lead until June 9th when I run it in New York. And to me, there's some athletes you take that with a grain of salt.
Jakob Ingebrigtsen.
Jakob from last week learned that lesson. But Noah Lyles, doesn't seem like that kind of guy. He seems like somebody that usually backs up what he's saying. He hasn't opened up in the 200 yet, but he ran 985 in the 100 meters at the Atlanta City Games. No, that was the Jamaica Racers meet. And ran 985. He did get beat at the end by Oblique, but if he can run 985 over 100 with not a very good start, 200, that's his stronger event, and he's only getting faster. So if he gets out of the blocks, I think 1965 is well within his range. I know he said he would love to break the American record. I don't know that that's in the cards for June 9th, but I do think that 1965 or faster is an achievable time for Noah this meet.
So yeah, it's Noah Lyle's 200-meter debut for the season. I just don't think that this is the meet that he's gonna show up and run a blazing fast time. Like, obviously, he doesn't have a bye into the Olympics. Nobody has a bye, so he has to be ready in 3 weeks to run fast there. With that said, we're talking about Noah Lyles here. He's one of the most talented guys on our roster. Like you said, he just ran 985 at Racers and did get beat, but he was pushed there. And in this race, I don't think he's going to be pushed as hard. Definitely the class of this field. But I think he's still going to run fast. So I'm going to say 1966 to 1980. I just don't think 1965 right now is what he's going to be aiming for. And he's been drilling the 60 meter and the 100 starts like all season. He already said in a previous podcast of ours that the 200, he's got that figured out. That's his bread and butter. I believe him there, but he hasn't. I don't know, but that leads me to believe that he hasn't been training as much for the 200 compared to the 100 because he needs more work in the 100, in his own words. So I'm going to go with 1966 to 1980.
So I think we'd all agree that Noah Lyles is capable of anything on a given day. There's nothing in his background, in his training, in any of the workouts that we've seen, any of the biomechanical analyses that have shown anything other than he's on, he's ready, everything's looking good. The thing that makes me nervous is that it's his first 200 of the year. And my guess is, again, Noah's capable of anything. My guess is maybe he and his coach Lance Brahman might just want to be a little conservative and just feel this out, right? You want to kind of feel it out your last race going into the Olympic trials, make sure everything's where you want it. I think, Jordan, when you made the lines for these, I think you made a really good line, and I think right in the middle of that curve is probably the right way to go. So I'm going to say 1981 to 1995. Again, wouldn't surprise me at all if he's faster. I think he's just going to be a little conservative, and you don't run the 200 all out. You got to pace it, right? And just getting the feel for that rhythm. I think let's give him one under his belt and then let him put the hammer down. And by the way, James, I'll let you hold on to the crown for this week. And then, maybe next week I'll be in the office when we do this, and, you can just let me hang on to it for the rest of the time.
Well, as long as Jordan's still wearing the hat, that's all that really matters. So
not going to happen.
Before we sign off here, the way to make your picks, go to usatf.org/pick'em. You'll fill out the form for the 10 questions that we just outlined here on this show. Make sure you side with me because obviously I'm wearing the crown and Jordan's wearing the hat. So make sure you
Remember,
choose wisely.
Dr. Chapman should be wearing the crown, not you.
He's
just not here.
We tied. All that matters is Jordan's wearing the hat. And with that, thank you guys for joining, and we will see you guys on the next episode of the USATF Fantasy Show.